Okay, so it is time for the long-awaited sticky note tutorial. I'm going to do this as a video because, well, number one, it's going to be easier, and number two, I don't really want to write out the various steps in the post because this is quite a process and you may miss steps. So I'm going to basically do the things that you need to do, and then I'm going to show you the code, but I'm going to give you a pre-scripted version of this, like the code that I'm going to write in the post. So you can just download that from the post. There's going to be a few things you need to do, but the pre-scripted like GUI and things will be in the post. But what you need to do first is we're going to just set up some basic stuff for the sticky note. So basically, we're going to go into replicated storage and create a folder. I'm going to call it sticky note. And basically inside here, I'm going to add a remote event and I'll call that sticky message. And I'll create a configuration object and we will just call that, well, we can just call it configuration, that's fine. We're going to have to add a few attributes to the configuration. So I'm going to add a message, which is just a string. I'm going to add a player name, which is also a string. And I'm going to add visible, which is going to be a boolean. You'll see why we use these later. Now, by the way, just to note, this is going to be probably an unconventional way of doing a sticky note command. I'm sure there's probably better ways of doing it, but this is how I generally like to do it. And it also takes into account any edge cases, like if a player is joining the game after a sticky note has been set, it will still fetch the sticky note and show it for that new player in the game, even if it was added to the game before they joined. So yeah, it's little things like that which I think makes this solution quite good. Now's the part where we're going to basically get on to actually coding it. So the first thing that I'm going to do is take the basic admin UI, and if you don't know how to get the module into the game, then follow the first step of the guide on the dev forum. But take the basic admin UI and paste it into the starter GUI just like this. So now I'm going to set up the UI, but you won't have to do this. I recommend you just take this pre-scripted file, which will contain just the UI, and just put it inside starter GUI. But if you do want to set it up yourself, and you don't trust downloading things, then fair enough. And this is how you do it. Basically, we're just going to call this sticky note, the GUI, and then we're going to delete everything that we don't need. So I'm going to go inside Baseclip, and I'm going to delete everything except the hint template, because I don't want anything else. Now, just for my sake, I'm going to rename some of these files so that it's a little bit easier for me to actually use them in code. So I'm just going to call this one message and, give them one-word names so that there's no spaces. Okay, cool. So we're now going to get into actually scripting it. And as I say, if you want to follow along the scripting, go ahead. I'm going to show you exactly what to do. If you don't want to follow the scripting, then you can skip ahead to where I actually have to code the basic admin plugin. And I'll show you that as well. But yeah, you can just take the pre-scripted version of the UI if you'd like. But if you do want to do it yourself, then I'm going to create a local script in here called sticky note handler. Now, we're going to do a few things in this file, but firstly, oh, I can't even spell services. We're going to get the replicated storage, okay? Because that's where we put the configuration folder up here. So basically, we are going to have a remote that gets handled here, and we are going to have we're just going to control the UI here, basically. So firstly, I'm going to get the configuration, which is going to be replicated storage.stickynote.configuration. And we're going to need this later. And then I'm going to deal with the actual UI. So we're going to get the container, which is script.parent.clip.container. And then we're also going to grab the player name label and the message label because we're going to need those later. So player name label is going to be container.top.title. And the message label is going to be container.body.message. Just like that. You see? Container. Okay. And then another thing is that we should be able to close out of the sticky note if we'd like. So we're going to get the close button, which is already built into the hint template with basic admin. It's just container.text button, and it's this one right here, and that'll be helpful later. Now we're going to add a function which is going to deal with toggling whether the hint GUI is visible or not, or whether the sticky note is visible or not. So I'm just going to go local function toggle visible, and we're going to take a visible parameter in here. Now, in order to replicate the feel of the basic admin hint, we're going to use the same code that they use for tweening it. Unlike for animating the GUI. So what we're going to do is if visible, okay, I can't type, and then else. So if it is visible, we're going to then tween it into its visible position. So I'm going to say container. Now, you could use tween position here, and that's actually what the basic admin uses. I would say this is probably quite out of date now, but I guess we'll just use tween position. I probably wouldn't recommend using this in actual work. Probably use the tween service, but I think tween position is still acceptable. Udem to from offset, and we just tween it to 0, 0. Now that is it. And then the different styles they use easing style out and easing direction. Sorry, other way around. Easing direction and easing style quint, and then it takes 0.3 and true. Okay, very simple. This is how we show the UI. Now, in order to hide the UI if it's invisible, I'm going to copy that line and paste it there, and instead of tweening to 0, we are just going to tween to minus container.absolute_size.y, and then another 5 pixels after that, and that will hide the container up here somewhere. So we can set this up manually by basically just moving the container to the top. So we can move the container further up by basically just setting the position to minus 65 so that it's up there. Then we can set it to be visible, as in the property is visible. Okay, so now we are going to do some of the main scripting here, and this is going to be fairly simple as well. Basically, when the configuration has one of its attributes changed, we are going to figure out which attribute changed and then deal with it depending on what changed. So I'm going to say config, I guess we'll just use attribute changed. Probably makes sense for what you're about to see. So we're going to get the new value for whatever attribute changed. So I'm just going to say config get attribute, just like that. So then we can check what the attribute was. So if the attribute was the player name, and these are the attributes we set up at the very start, then we're going to change the player name labels text to the new value. If the attribute was the message itself, then we're going to change the message labels text to the new value. And if the attribute was visible, then we're going to toggle visible on the UI with the new value. You'll see why this is becoming a more elegant solution than some other things. We also would like to deal with closing out of the UI. So whenever the close button is clicked, we are going to connect a function which basically just sets the config visible attribute to false, just like that. And that will automatically hide the UI when you click on it. Okay, so in order to initialize this, we basically just want to set up the position itself. We don't really have to do it in Studio if we don't want. So just if you don't want to do it in Studio, then Udem to, we can actually just copy it up here, just like that. And I'm also going to set visible to be true. Then all we're going to do is initialize it as if it was like existing before we joined, so that we can sync it up with whatever the current state of it is. So I'm going to set the text to whatever the current player name is, whatever the current message is, and whatever I'm going to toggle visible based on whatever the current visibility is, basically. So if that's false, then it just will do nothing. If it's true, it will show the new message. So this is all we need to do for setting up the sticky note on the client side. That's literally all we have to do. Now, one thing that we do need to do is take into account that we're using the default basic admin hint, okay? So that means that if we have the sticky note command and the hint at the same time, then the sticky note command and the hint will kind of just overlap, and that's not really good. So what we want to actually do instead is just one line on the basic admin client script, and we're going to basically search for the word hint in like the speech marks here. And I think, whereabout is it? I think it is here, actually, yeah. So I think this is where the hint is. Well, let me see, actually. Oh, no, this is not the hint, actually. Let's see. Well, let's type... is it in this? Ah, yeah, here. It was here all along. Okay. And so basically, what we kind of just need to do is... change this so that it's gonna hide the UI when a new hint comes in, basically. So all we're gonna do is replicated storage dot sticky note dot configuration set attribute visible false. So that hides the sticky note if a new hint comes in that overwrites it. And this is just one line, which is going to basically fix all the issues we're going to run into later on. Right. So if you did code that on your own, then well done. We're now going to get onto the last part, which is coding the basic admin plugin to deal with this. And so, again, you can copy the code from the post if you'd like to, but if you want to follow along, then this is how you do it. Basically, we need to duplicate the example plugin, and so I'm just going to duplicate that, and I'm going to call it sticky note, okay? Inside this file, we're going to deal with actually doing the sticky note. So what I'm going to do is change this to sticky note, the plugin name, and I'm going to change the plugin usage to just say message, because if you're doing a sticky note, then you'd like to do a message. Now, what I'm going to do is over here in description, I'm just going to say something like sets a sticky message. And what we also want to note is that if they don't give a sticky message at all, then we should just clear the current message. If no message is passed, current message is cleared. And we'll deal with this in a sec. Okay, so again, we're going to need the replicated storage and also the config. So I'm going to just say replicated storage now. Dot configuration. Okay, perfect. So this is all we need to do. Now I'm going to get rid of all this like crap, basically. We really do not need this. So I'll just close out of that and also get rid of this at the top. I don't really want that there. Okay. So now let's just get into this. So I'm going to delete everything here in the plugin function, and you can copy the plugin function and paste it into here if you'd like to. I'm going to code it myself, but I've posted the code on the dev forum, so you can go ahead and access that if you'd like, and just paste it in. If you want to do it yourself, then it's a fairly simple command. Basically, we're checking if they have passed a message or not. So if they have, we'll actually deal with the case if they haven't first. So we're going to just set the attribute visible to false, And then we're going to wipe the current message by just saying set attribute message. We're going to set it to a blank string, and also set the player name to a blank string as well. Now that's what happens if it's nil, basically, if there's no message passed. What we now need to do is combine the arguments into a normal string that we can just filter, basically. So the first thing I'm going to do is combine the arguments. And the way we can do that, because the argument is table is just a table of strings, is using table.concat, which concatenates a table into a string. So I can say local combined args is table.concat. And then all you're going to do in this function is give it the arguments table, a space as the separator, and then we're just going to say that we start at argument 3. And now basically we are just going to filter the argument. Now I think that the clean data function actually does allow you to filter the message, but there's also a function of the chat service which allows you to filter a message just as easily, and so I'm just going to use that. Now it is important that you do filter the message. It's basically against TOS if you show a message which isn't filtered. So make sure that you filter the message. Luckily, it's very simple to filter the message. All you need to do is filtered message is chat service filter string for broadcast, and then pass in the combined arguments and the player it is coming from. And that will filter the message so that it can be broadcasted to the entire server. And then all we are going to do is basically hide whatever sticky note is currently on and set the new one. So I'm going to say sticky note config set attribute visible false. Now this is just in case there's one right now. And then I'm going to set the new arguments, basically. Set attribute player name, and this is going to be player.name. I'm going to create the message as a filtered message, and then we are just going to show it. So visible is true. Now, I'm just going to add a task.wait of 0.15 here, just so that you can actually visibly see the sticky note being changed, and it doesn't just automatically change. Now then, that's basically it. That's the sticky note command. And so we can test this out very easily by just going into the game and running the sticky note command. So the sticky note command is sticky notes hello. And as you can see, my sticky note has now appeared. It doesn't go away like a hint does, unless we click on it, in which case it does go away. I'm going to add a new sticky note called test note, haha, and that's 3 words, and you can see it has brought it together. But if we do a hint, a normal hint, so I'm just going to do a hint, and that's just with H, override the sticky notes, okay? And then we click on it, you'll see, oh, my command prefix is different. Override the sticky note, you'll see that it got rid of the sticky note and then showed my hint, but my hint still goes away as normal, as you can see. And then the one last thing is a test sticky note there. The sticky note goes away if you run sticky note with no arguments. So I'm going to run sticky note and it goes away. There we go. That is all you need to do to set up a sticky note command with basic admin essentials. And hopefully you found that helpful.